The proposal they made him was, hearing it today, almost reasonable. We're not asking you to deny Christ. We're just asking for something else. No denial, no abjuration, no signature on a piece of paper. Whoever asked it wasn't a fool and knew exactly what he was asking. That seemingly small request was worth more than 1,000 interrogations. He said no, and for that no, he paid a price we can barely imagine today, sitting comfortably where we are, with the freedom we take for granted. This story was told on August 3rd, in Ireland, in Cove, in the Benedictine convent, before the audience of a Catholic Voice conference. The story was told by Monsignor Athanasius Schneider, Auxiliary Bishop of the Archdiocese of Santa Maria in Astana, Kazakhstan. He didn't read it in a book, he saw it. The news was picked up by LifeSite News, and before that, by the Ad Vaticanum portal. But what's been making headlines around the Catholic world isn't the story, it's a sentence. We'll get to that shortly, but first, we need to understand where Schneider saw all this with his own eyes, because without that place, his statement wouldn't have the same weight. Soviet Kazakhstan, a Catholic community made up largely of deportees, Germans and Poles brought there by force, who met secretly in homes, without a church and without freedom. There were times when we had meetings like this, he told those present, but we had to close the windows and doors because we were monitored by the secret police. And he added a sentence that says everything about those years better than any history book, and we had to hide the priests. Priests celebrated Mass in private homes under constant restrictions and at the risk of arrest. No bell tower, no posted timetable, nothing that could be recognized from the outside as a church. In that community lived a man everyone simply called Father Alexander. He was a priest like any other, or at least that's how it seemed to anyone who met him on the street or at home. His real name was Alexander Chira, born in 1897 and died in 1983. And he wasn't a priest, he was a clandestine Greek Catholic bishop. And it was to him that the Soviet authorities made the proposal we began with, the one that opens this video. They didn't ask him to renounce Christ, they simply asked him to become Orthodox. Put like that, it almost seems like a courtesy, almost a favor. He could have remained a Christian, remained a priest, continued to celebrate the sacraments and hear confessions. He simply had to separate himself from communion with Rome. He refused, Schneider told the Irish audience, a single word told as it is, for a decision that cost him everything he had and everything he could have. The consequence, and these are his words again, was imprisonment in several concentration camps called gulags, not just one, several, one after another. When he finally got out, he was placed under house arrest in Karaganda, and that's where the part of this story that almost no one knows begins. To avoid being sent back to the camps, he had to hide his bishop status from everyone for years, every single day, including the faithful closest to him. He couldn't reveal his identity as a bishop, Schneider explained. Otherwise, he would have been sent back, so all he could tell people was, "I am Father Alexander." Meanwhile, the community was growing, and at a certain point, those Catholics did something that simply wasn't done in the Soviet Union. They went to the authorities and asked for permission to build a church. The officials' response was exactly what one would expect. "It's impossible. We live in a communist and atheistic society. You can't build churches." And so the local German Catholics used the only weapon they had. They let it be known that if permission didn't arrive, they would apply to emigrate to Germany. Incredibly, the permit finally arrived. but it came with two very specific conditions, designed specifically to strip it of any externally visible religious significance. The church was meant to resemble any other hall, and its height was limited. From the outside, no one was supposed to guess that it was a place of worship. And here, those faithful did something that's worth the whole story. The authorities had limited the height, but no one had thought to prohibit construction downwards. So they began to dig. And beneath that anonymous hall, a spacious church emerged, invisible from the street and invisible to anyone who passed by unknowingly. Schneider describes it with words that don't sound like those of a bishop, but rather of a child who remembers it. Frescoes on the ceiling, gold, side altars, beautiful, truly, with so much love. People who couldn't have a church above ground built one below and filled it with gold, under a regime that would make them pay dearly for it. Now let's go back to Cove Island, to that room in the Benedictine convent, and to what Schneider told those present after he finished telling all this. He compared those years to the situation the church is experiencing today, and then he uttered the phrase that went viral on Catholic websites. The most precious gift we have received is faith, the Catholic faith, the true Catholic faith. And immediately after comes the actual appeal, the one that has sparked discussion. Therefore, we must be 100% Catholic, not 50%, not 80%, but 100%. This is the divine faith. In support of this, he cited the Gospel, which says that whoever takes away even the smallest of the commandments will be considered the least in the kingdom of heaven. Said like that, it might seem banal, the kind of phrase you nod and forget. Of course, you have to be 100% Catholic. Who would ever openly say otherwise? But this is exactly where Karaganda's story stops being a touching tale to listen to and becomes something much more uncomfortable, a topic that concerns us too. Because no one ever asked Chira to deny Christ. No one asked him to blaspheme, to spit on a crucifix, to declare himself an atheist in front of anyone. Essentially, they asked him for a percentage. They asked him to remain 90% Christian and to give up the 10% that concerned communion with Rome. Regimes almost never ask for everything at once because they know they'll be refused. They ask for a portion, the smallest possible, the one that seems irrelevant at the time. And those who accept, almost always, don't feel like they've betrayed anything. They feel like they've saved 90% of what they had. This is where the two parts of his speech come together, and that's why he talked about Karaganda before saying that sentence. Because without that story, the sentence remains a figure of speech. With that history inside, however, it becomes a very specific and very uncomfortable question. What is the 10% you are being asked, kindly, to let go of today? That underground church was finally completed, and the faithful faced a problem they hadn't foreseen. They believed there wasn't a single Catholic bishop left capable of consecrating it. Then, on June 29th, 1980, Father Alexander donned his bishop's vestments, and for the first time, everyone understood who he was. People began to cry. One elderly woman said that day there were more tears than holy water. What do you think? If you liked the video, comment, Amen, God bless you,